Sunday on The Attorneys discussing criminal law. Would love to have you join us Sunday after Alabama's 13 News at 10. Leading the conversation, as he often does, Carter Clay. Going to be an interesting evening, isn't it?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about criminal law. Obviously, as a society, we would like for individuals not to commit crimes, but we know that's just simply not the case. Right. There are a lot of crimes committed every day, a lot of heinous crimes involving violence, domestic issues, and things like that. But there are a lot of innocent people that are charged with crimes. And because of that, we have a body of criminal law that provides protections for any individual that is charged with a crime. And we're going to be talking about the rights that those individuals have, help them understand those rights and how to exercise those rights properly. And we're going to have Emory Anthony, a great lawyer here in town, to discuss the topic.
Yeah, going to be fantastic. Join us Sunday night right here, Alabama's 13, after Sunday night's news at 10:30. We'll see you then right here on The Attorneys.
Car crash cases, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis, Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts. The attorneys with Josh Wright from the law firm of Hollis, Wright, and host David Lamb.
Hello and welcome into The Attorneys. We appreciate you spending your Sunday evening with us. Our topic of conversation tonight is criminal law, a fascinating topic with many different facets and places for us to go and discover in the conversation tonight. But it's always better when you join in. Throughout the program, you'll see at the bottom of your screen ways you can call, text, and email live. Attorneys are standing by live right now. Attorneys from Hollis, Wright. They are standing by to speak with you. So get those questions into us and they'll pass them along to me and we'll get them to our panel of experts. That's the way it's going to work. Would love to have you be a part of the conversation. Leading our conversation tonight from the firm of Hollis, Wright, Carter Clay. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, David. I hope you're doing well.
Doing well. Thank you, sir.
Criminal law is always an interesting topic when we cover on this show because it's a little bit awkward because we don't want the viewers to get the wrong idea that we're not up here just trying to provide information and tips to the criminals out there to get them off and have them found not guilty if they're prosecuted. Right. But our body of law goes back many, many years, and it's designed and set up to not only protect individuals who in fact committed crimes, but we don't want the punishment not to fit the crime. We want the punishment to fit the crime that they committed, and we also want to protect the innocent. I mean, what a scary experience you can imagine to be innocent of something that you're being criminally prosecuted for. And every day in our society we hear of individuals who spent time in jail for many, many years who really didn't commit the crime. And a lot of that has come through advancements in technology and DNA analysis and things like that. So we're going to be talking about criminal law tonight. We're going to be providing tips and guidance and recommendations to individuals out there who have been wrongfully charged with a crime, and for those individuals who may have committed a crime, just to provide them with a good understanding of what their rights are to make sure that the punishment that they receive in fact matches up with the crime that they committed. Right. And we're very fortunate here tonight to have attorney Emory Anthony with us on the show. Emory, we very much appreciate you being here. I know you've got an outstanding reputation in the area of criminal law and defending individuals who have been charged with crimes. I know you've had some high-profile cases over the years, but talk to us a little bit about your area of practice, introduce yourself, and then we'll just launch right into the subject.
Well, of course, I'm from Birmingham and finished from Ramsey High School. I take pride in saying that the Ramsey Rams, and I know we have a number of them out there watching. Alabama A&M University, Miles Law School. I've worked and went to law school at night. When I finished law school, I began prosecuting with the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office for about 4 years, where I prosecuted cases, capital murders, rapes, and robberies. Then in 1982, I was appointed municipal judge for the city of Birmingham, and I sat there for about 12 years. I had a desire to be mayor of the city of Birmingham, and I ran against Richard Arrington, who did not have a desire for me to be mayor. And so I ended up leaving the municipal bench and went into private practice where I do nothing but defense work, dealing with basically capital murders cases, robberies. Every now and then I'll handle a rape case, but I try to stay away from those.
And just to give the viewers kind of a broad overview of the governmental levels or entities that do the prosecutions. As you've served on as a municipal judge,
Sure.
so in terms of, you have city prosecutors that
That's
oftentimes
correct.
are on a part-time basis and will prosecute crimes that are committed in city limits, correct?
Right. That's
And then if they are a different type of crime, it may be elevated to the district attorney's offices, which are an entity of the counties.
That's correct.
And then if it's a federal crime,
Right.
you've got the U.S. Attorney's Office that
That's correct.
prosecutes cases in the federal court system, correct?
Well, the system is set up to not only protect the rights of the defendant, but the rights of the victims. In the 1980s, you became with the Victim Rights Act that was passed to make sure that victims had certain rights. But when you talk about prosecutors, and in the municipal court, you're dealing with misdemeanors, and misdemeanor offenses are those offenses that when committed, you can serve up to 12 months in jail. And basically, in the city of Birmingham and your other municipalities, you're talking about a city ordinance that cover those particular offenses. When you go to the county, you're talking about, Jefferson County, you're talking about the statewide law. We have a code section 13A that covers a large number of criminal offenses throughout the state of Alabama. And once you commit offense on those particular offenses, it could be a misdemeanor, it could be a felony, and a felony is when you can serve up to a year and a day, starting with a year and a day, up to life or life without, or even the death penalty. But federal court is a total different ball game. It's based upon violating a federal statute. So you have an ordinance, a state statute, and you have a federal statute that deal with the laws that protect the citizens as well as the rights of a defendant.
And whether you are being prosecuted at the statewide level through the county district attorney's office or the federal level, isn't there sort of a general process that a
Right.
criminal defendant will
Right.
go through? And tell us a little bit about what that process consists of.
Well, it all starts with an arrest, and generally it will be either arrest warrant is sent out, someone comes in and swear out a warrant for a particular party, even in the municipal level. You go to the magistrate, the city magistrate. If you want to swear out a misdemeanor warrant, you can do it there. Generally, you go to the police department or the sheriff department in the county, and they will go and get a warrant with the DA's office, the Jefferson County District Attorney's office. And once a warrant is obtained for you, then they will arrest you. Now, you can get arrested on the scene, and you know that yes, someone may come up and you're robbing a bank and stop you from robbing the bank and arrest you right there.
Or a DUI would be a good example of that.
DUI is probably the worst examples that everybody can use, because I know, not you all, but I know that some people think that they can drink and drive, but that's one of the worst things. When I was a judge for 12 years, it was one of the worst offenses that you could have committed, because we had a number of individuals that were paralyzed, died because individuals were drinking and driving. But once you're arrested, they will take you to either the jail, Birmingham jail, the county jail, or whatever. They would talk about a bail, a bond. Whether or not a bond, they have a bond schedule generally in the state court. They recommend certain numbers for Class C felonies, Class B felonies, and Class A felonies. And then they will give you a particular bond. Now, if you don't get a bond within 48 hours, then usually, if you have an attorney, which we'll talk about that's one of the things that I think everybody should do, is consult with an attorney even once you're arrested. And if you know they have a warrant for you, you need to consult with your attorney before you turn yourself in, to make sure that certain rights that you have are protected, the right to remain silent and different things of that nature. But once a bond is set, you have the obligation, if you want to make a bond, and hopefully, it's a reasonable bond. The Eighth Amendment calls for a reasonable bond. So we have pretty good judges in the county, and they set reasonable bonds.
Let me ask you, I don't know how much time we have before the break, but I want to talk about the specifics of how a bond works.
Sure.
Say you hear somebody has a $10,000 bond.
Right.
What does that exactly mean?
Well, it's a surety that you will appear in court, and that's one of the things that I tell my clients, that so many times family members say, well, I don't want to put my house up if it's a property bond because I don't know whether he will be found guilty or not guilty. But that's not the issue. The only issue is whether or not the person that you are bonding will appear in court. That's the purpose of the bond, to make sure that they appear in court.
All right, time for us to take our first break. After the break, can we go off script and ask a non-legal question?
Absolutely.
All right, that question, just something I'm curious about, that now that we have someone like an Emory Anthony here that I've always wanted to know. We'll get to that. We'll answer that question. I'll ask it. A big surprise, the big reveal after the break. Stay tuned. More of the attorneys coming right up. And here's how you can join the conversation. Again, a reminder, live attorneys standing by right now to take your call. Here's how you can call, text, email, join the conversation. Stay tuned. We're coming right back.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis, Wright, and thanks for watching the attorneys on Alabama's 13. Now, we hope you, a friend, or a loved one never need legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of this show is simple: provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free, so if you have questions specific to this show or related to other civil legal matters, call, email, or text us to talk with one of our lawyers. You can also follow us on Facebook or Twitter to learn about important legal news that could affect you or your family. Or simply contact us by going to alabamas13.com and click on the attorney's link. Now, we know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us and for watching the attorneys right here on Alabama's 13.
Welcome back into the attorneys. A fascinating topic tonight, criminal law, answering your questions. Would love to have you join the conversation. If there's something you've always wanted to know about criminal law, now's the time to ask. An esteemed panel that we have tonight to answer your questions. Call, text, email, and join the conversation. Along with Carter Clay, joining us is Emory Anthony. You may recognize Mr. Anthony. I mean, you have been the attorney for some high-profile cases. There's a question I've kind of always wanted to know about fellows who go into criminal law like you do, because it seems as though there are times it's a pretty tough go, a tough line of work. And I wonder, if you're coming out of law school and you're deciding what to do, what was it about criminal law that compelled you and helped you decide, yeah, that's what I need to be doing?
Well, it's not like I went to law school saying I wanted to be a criminal lawyer.
Right.
When I finished law school, I didn't say I wanted to be be involved in the field of criminal law. It was after I began to prosecute with the DA's office. I spent 3.5, 4 years there. And almost like anything, and I think Carter will attest to this, you begin to specialize in certain fields. So after 3.5, 4 years there, I was dealing basically with criminal law as far as prosecuting. Right. And then I became a municipal judge, and we dealt with violation of ordinances. So I'm back in the field of criminal law, giving fine and sometimes jail sentence. So it kind of pushed me there, more or less, than me directly just jumping in. Now, when you talk about dealing with cases, you know, when I get on the radio station, people ask me, well, you're defending someone charged with capital murder. You must like capital murder. No, that's not one of the things.
That gets back to my awkwardness comment at the beginning of the show.
You know, they say, you must enjoy dealing with capital murder. No, but like Carter say, a defendant has a right, and he's presumed to be innocent. And one of the things about this country is a person is innocent until proven guilty. And so many times people fail to realize if it's their family member that's charged with something, they want to get the best for them.
Absolutely.
And that's why we try to defend and make sure that the state of Alabama and federal government, they prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt.
And speaking of getting the best for them, after the arrest takes place, the family is oftentimes confronted with, well, how can I get my loved one out of jail pending their trial? Right. And we talked a little bit before the break about bail being set and bonding somebody out of jail. Right. Talk a little bit about the differences between a property bond, a cash bond, and using a bail bonding agency and the mechanics of how those work.
Well, what will happen is that the court within 48 hours would generally put a bond on the particular individual if the warrant is not designated with a bond. Usually if you go to the DA's office or the magistrate, they will put a designated amount on the bond. And let's say, like in your example, it's a $10,000 bond. If you do not have property in Jefferson County that values up to $10,000, then of course you would have to go to a bonding company. And at the bonding company, you would have to make 10 to 15% of the bond. If it's $10,000, $1,000 cash, you would have to give to the bonding company. And in those cases, I tell my family members that the money that you give to the bonding company is not going to be refunded. It's their assurance to make sure that your son, daughter, uncle, whoever appear in court. And it's one of the processes that a person will be given a bond with the indication that you will appear for each and every docket call. And a docket call is when your case is called to be dealt with, from a preliminary hearing to arraignment to pretrial or whatever else, to appear in court.
And there are TV shows now where the charged individual doesn't appear at trial or those docket calls, and you have bounty hunters that go after them because obviously the bail bonding company doesn't want to have to pay the $10,000 bond amount.
Right, and that's a very good point, that whatever bond amount, even if you put your house up, and the judges are very, they take their time as far as making sure a house is forfeited for the particular bond. If it's a family member, in Alabama, you are the only one, if you put up a bond, you can go find this person anywhere. The law gives you that right, because you are the person that have put the bond up. You can go anywhere and get that person and return them back to the state, and then you can get off the bond. But you have to make sure that you bring them back to court to get off the bond, whether you're a bonding company or you put your house up.
And so after the individual's bonded out or can't get bond, walk us through the remaining steps before trial.
Well, what will happen is the first phase would be dealing with the preliminary hearing, and that's a probable cause hearing, where the state of Alabama have to prove to a judge that probable cause exists, one, that a crime was committed, and two, that the particular person charged committed that crime. And it's not beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not to find them guilty or not guilty. It's just to find whether or not probable cause exists. And if the judge finds that probable cause exists, the case will be bound over to the grand jury. If they do not find probable cause, of course, the case can be dismissed. But when you bound over to the grand jury, what transpires, the people of the community come together. Probable cause, the degree of proof is lesser than a reasonable doubt. They consider whether or not an indictment should be issued against a particular defendant. And once an indictment is issued, you get to the arraignment, and that's where the formal charges are read to the particular defendant.
Time for us to take our second and final break of the evening. When we come back, more of the attorneys discussing criminal law. Would love to have you be a part of the conversation. Call, text, email. Live attorneys standing by right now to speak with you. Also, a reminder, you can find the firm of Hollis Wright if you want to search that term on Facebook, and on Twitter it's Hollis_Wright. Stay tuned. More of the attorneys coming right up.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis Wright. If you've ever served on a jury, you may have wondered why there are gaps in the evidence you're given at trial. In today's Legal 4-in-1, we're answering the question, is there insurance to pay the verdict? Know this, just because the lawyers never mention insurance in a trial, it doesn't mean there's not insurance to pay the verdict. Rule 4-in-1 of the Alabama Rules of Evidence states this: evidence that a person was or was not insured against liability is generally not admissible or allowed to be discussed at trial in front of the jury. The reason for the rule is simple. A jury could award more money in a case if they knew the defendant had insurance to pay for it. But the reality in our state is this: in almost all lawsuits that get to a trial, insurance is there to pay judgments awarded by the jury. For example, all automobiles in Alabama are required to have liability insurance. Coverage can range from $25,000 up to $1 million in these cases. In theory, all car crash cases that get to trial should have insurance available to pay any verdict awarded in the case. Trucks have to carry anywhere from $750,000 to $5 million worth of insurance. Unfortunately, you'll never hear that during the trial. Even in medical malpractice cases, the doctor has liability insurance to help pay a judgment. That's something you won't hear during trial because the rules just don't allow that testimony. Yet almost all judgments against a doctor involve liability insurance. Please remember your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis Wright want to help answer your questions on real issues you face. Remember, a competent lawyer will respond to every question you send in. That's our promise and pledge to you. Thanks for watching The Attorneys right here on Alabama's 13.
Welcome back into The Attorneys, doing a show like this one with Misters Clay and Anthony. Time flies by. Just a few minutes remaining, but time enough for you to get your question into us. Call, text, email, join the conversation today. Carter?
Yeah, and the firm fact we just saw reference the grand jury process. And
Sure.
so for purposes of completing our questioning on the overall process, an individual gets indicted through the grand jury process. What happens next in terms of moving them towards trial and maybe even a plea bargain of some kind?
What will happen once the arraignment is called, the judge will ask the state of Alabama, do you have a plea offer? And then when I say plea offer, some type of offer to the defendant to plead guilty. If the defendant does not wish to take the offer, then you tell the court to set it for trial. The discovery process begins really as far as getting different types of discovery, and then you're set for trial and you get ready for trial.
Well, and speaking of the discovery process, there in My Cousin Vinny, there's that interesting scene where Marissa Tomei tells Joe Pesci
Yeah.
that he actually has a right to get the discovery materials of the prosecution. And as a lawyer, he apparently didn't know that. But talk a little bit about that. What can a defense lawyer like yourself gain access to from the prosecution?
Well, in Alabama, Rule 16 gives us the right to file notice within whenever point in time. We can file notice at any time asking for a discovery, and within 14 days the state of Alabama is obligated to give us discovery. Discovery will include any type of police reports. It will include any statement that your client made, if there is a co-defendant, their statement, anything that could be exculpatory. The state of Alabama, throughout the particular proceeding, even in doing the trial, is required to give us exculpatory material. And exculpatory material is any material that the defense may use and can be used to show that he did not commit the crime. So the law is pretty good as far as giving you what you want. Now, it's not like in civil cases. In civil cases, you can take deposition and get everything, go back and forth. That doesn't happen. It will have to be a unique situation to show the court that a witness probably can't come sick, ill, about to die before we get a deposition. But we have a pretty good discovery here in the state of Alabama.
Yeah, and so once discovery is done, you would either go through a trial, and I think
Right.
the general public understands what a trial generally consists of.
Right.
And along the way, you can plea bargain where the
At any
individual
time,
can plea.
unless the state withdraws the plea, you can plea at any time, even during the trial, even after selecting the jury, or any point that the state have not withdrawn the plea agreement.
A question we have here, that's a good one from a viewer. At what point in the process should I contact an attorney?
Immediately. I think it's very important. So many times you hear this from individuals. I'm not guilty. I can go talk to the police and I can tell them my statement. But I think it's very important that you get a lawyer involved as soon as possible. If there's an investigation that someone is investigating you, the police, FBI, I think you should get a police involved. Not a police, a lawyer involved. Thank you.
The police are already
They're already involved because they're doing the investigation.
Talk a little bit about our consent laws, implied consent relative to somebody being approached by a police officer, and the police officer says, I want to search your car, I want to search your house. What rights does an individual have in that situation?
Well, generally a police officer has the right to ask you your name and for identification at any point in time without any probable cause. If the police officer is attempting to search you, the law requires that they either have probable cause, which means that you believe that a crime is being committed or about to be committed, or reasonable suspicion. Reasonable suspicion is just a little bit degree less than probable cause, saying that you're suspicious, the suspicious act of this particular person brought you to the attention. As a particular citizen of this country, you have the right to say no. You don't have, when they pull your car over and they say, well, can I search your car? You can say no. Now, police officer general will tell you, I'm writing you a ticket for something. We're gonna call the K9 unit, and by the time I finish the ticket, the K9 unit will be here to, smell around your car. And the Supreme Court has said that the K9 unit is not a search of your car. So, but you do have the right to deny making a statement. You don't have to consent to say anything to the police, and you have the right to not allow them to search your car.
What about the something else that we have discussed a lot is if like a sobriety test and,
Yes.
and that sort of thing.
Yes.
Is even in that instance, do you also have the right?
You have the right, but you will give up certain privileges if
Really?
you do that. In Alabama, we implied consent that when we get a license, that once we're arrested and taken to the jail or wherever else to do a test on our alcohol level, if we refuse that test, then our privilege to drive will be suspended for 90 days. The license will be taken away from you. So that you have to be very careful. Some lawyers will tell you you shouldn't do a test. Now whether you have been drinking or
Right.
not. So that's a problem. You don't want to compound 90 days for denying the implied consent on the license to once you get convicted and that coming in too. Another suspension.
Under what circumstances do individuals have to be read their Miranda rights?
Only when you're in custody and a statement is being asked of you. A lot of time my clients say, well, Mr. Anthony, they pulled me over, they pulled me out of the car and they didn't give me Miranda. Well, they didn't ask you any questions. They did pull you over. They arrested you because they believe they had probable cause that you committed a crime, but they didn't ask you anything. So they don't have to talk about Miranda. But the moment that they try to get a statement from you, start asking questions, they have focused in on you as being the suspect, you're under custody, then they have to give you Miranda.
All right, and that was going to be the point that I wanted to make. If they call you into the police station to ask you questions about a crime that they suspect you committed,
Right.
do they have to read you the Miranda rights at that moment in time as a potential suspect?
They should. Police officers are very sleek too. Usually they will tell the court, because you have a suppression hearing where you try to suppress the statement. They would say that we hadn't focused on him as a suspect. He wasn't a suspect, and we were just calling in to get information. He was present when the event occurred, and we're just trying to get information from him. Yes, sir.
Our time's about up. Can you believe that?
I
Well,
can't
it's gone
believe
by
it.
fast.
We've flown through it. Just time enough for some final thoughts from you, Mr. Anthony. If you would go first, please, sir.
Well, first of all, I think anytime you talk about the criminal legal system, you should be aware of what your rights are.
Right.
I mean, just like anything, you should know certain things. You don't want, this particular segment is not to say that you should be out committing crimes. What we're trying to do is to inform individuals that you do have certain legal rights on the Constitution of the United States.
All right, just a
Well,
minute.
just absolute great tips from Emory Anthony tonight. We really appreciate you
My
being on
pleasure.
the show here. But obviously, we don't want individuals to commit crimes. Understand the difference between right and wrong. It gets all the way back to child rearing and parenting, really. But obviously, people are going to make mistakes. They're going to make poor decisions as they go through life, and they're going to commit crimes. And so as part of doing that, you just need to have a fundamental understanding of what your rights are, your ability to be able to exercise those rights, and in part, hiring somebody like Emory Anthony could go a long way to protecting those rights.
Absolutely. We need another half hour here tonight. Appreciate you both being with us. Thank you as well. Hope you enjoyed the conversation tonight as much as we did. Here's how you can get in touch with the attorneys of Hollis Wright. Call, text, email, join the conversation. It continues on. Thanks so much for being with us. We'll see you right here next week on The Attorneys.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright.